There were 1,000 people in the hall, and I said, my name is Chris Smith. I'm the Labour MP for Islington South and Finsbury, and I'm gay.
A group of us in the Gay Liberation Front hit on the idea of holding a gay pride march to challenge that shameful view.
Equality, and for some people in Stonewall, like me, equality was kind of like what you got to as a starting point.
Welcome to The View From Here, the podcast that explores the lives of key people in the LGBTQ+ movement. I'm Jonathan.
And I'm James. We hope you enjoy the podcast. We have, she's here, Adèle Anderson, a singer, actress and writer, best known as a member of the acclaimed cabaret group Fascinating Aida, and a passionate advocate for trans visibility and equality. And we're going to hear from Adèle in a bit because we are going to do a live podcast recording right here in a couple of minutes. So don't go anywhere. And don't make any noise when it's happening.
You'll also be very quiet.
The background to this, we recorded Adèle in January. And I think what's really, really sad to think about is just how much has gone downhill in trans rights from January to now. And it's actually really shocking. And so, you know, it's not necessarily going to be the most uplifting chat we're going to have in a few minutes' time. And so now I think we're going to invite Adèle up onto the stage and we're going to do a little recording. So wonderful you're here. I'm really excited about this, and I think this is going to be great. So Adèle, tell us a bit about yourself and introduce yourself to our audience.
Right. My name's Adèle Anderson. I was born in 1952. I began my transition in 1973, and I was fully surgically completed in 1978. And I was under the care of the infamous Dr. John Randall at Charing Cross Hospital, who always encouraged us to live in stealth. So for a long time, I didn't tell anybody that I was trans. It wasn't a thing that you tried to conceal it. And then in 1984, I joined Fascinating Aida, the wonderful Dilly Keane, and a series of sopranos over the years. And I found my haven, and I've been entertaining people around the country ever since then. And a lot of people know, a lot of the audience know that I'm trans. A lot of people didn't. And it's never made any difference. Even when we sang a song about, it was called Prisoner of Gender, and which I actually sang about my transition. And the little old ladies were overheard saying, why is she singing that song? I don't know what's going on. But over the last few years, I saw the way the tide was turning, and I've been much more encouraged to be openly trans and to talk about trans matters. And then, as you say, we have the Supreme Court ruling this year. I happened to be on a cruise up the Dalmatian coast when it happened. And I remember coming into the bar and feeling quite sick. And it was a very small cruise, and I'd only met these people recently. They all came round and offered me support, and that was all wonderful. And it actually hasn't affected me that much so far, because I've not ever been challenged going into a women's toilet or a women's changing room, and that I think that will continue. I don't know yet what would happen next time I'm admitted to hospital, because I've spent plenty of time in women's wards. It could be that I'll have to have a private room. Wouldn't that be dreadful? And we'll see what happens when I try and renew my passport in 2027. But what I have noticed is a change towards the attitude towards trans people. I really look back and I think of when Dana International won Eurovision, when Nadia won Big Brother, and then we had trans characters in all the soaps, and suddenly the right wing, sorry to get a bit political, but the Christian nationalists and the right wing press have really just done a number on us. And most people had not been concerned about these matters until they were being told that they should. I have found myself self-censoring a bit. I did a show recently, and I knew I was going to be sharing a dressing room with 3 young actresses. And I felt I had to say within the rehearsal period that I was trans, just in case any of them had an objection to that, which they didn't, of course. Then also I did a workshop for a feminist musical last year, and they checked my availability to see if I could do it this year. And I thought, I probably shouldn't do this musical this year because somebody might. It only takes one person to complain. And then, so I didn't actually, I couldn't do it, but I didn't actually do it. But I've got an absolute example of how dreadful things are getting at the moment, because I have a very good friend, and she swims in the Hampstead Women's Pond every day, come rain or shine. And recently, it was insisted by the London Corporation, I think, that they had to have a vote about whether trans women could continue to be admitted. And they all said, that's fine, we have got no problem with it. Well, they didn't like that answer, so then they went to another committee and they had another thing about that. They also said it was fine. And then a group of TERFs stormed the AGM and basically managed to get one of their members elected onto the committee. And they are absolutely out, and they don't even swim there. They don't even swim in the pond. But they decided that this was a battle that they needed to fight, and they've come in and they've basically taken over this committee, and they are going to make sure that trans women cannot swim there, even though nobody else gave a damn. And that's how bad it's getting now.
I think one of the first battles of feminism in the late Victorian period was against the urinary leash that were placed upon women, because there were no public toilets for women. So women couldn't really leave the house for longer periods of time because there was nowhere for them to use the facility. They had to be in the company of men, and they couldn't really go far from home. Do you feel that that's coming around again, that leash is being deployed against trans people?
Oh, yes. And this business about public toilets, I've never, ever understood it. Because every time I go into a woman's public toilet, there's a male cleaner in there. So you don't need to dress up as a woman in order to go there and molest people. Not that you would be, but you know what I mean. You just go in with a mop or a duster. So that's been ridiculous. But I have to say, one thing that has really saddened me about this is everybody has been very supportive of it, but I have one friend, which is actually my cousin's partner, which makes it my partner's cousin, which makes it worse. I've known her for 50 years. And when the Supreme Court ruling came out, she rang me up to talk to me about it. And she said, well, I think that women and children do need to be protected in the public space. And I went, what do you imagine goes on in which public toilets do you go to? People go in, they lock the door, they have a pee, and then they go wash their hands and they go. And she was, but. And I said, so what you're saying is that trans women are a threat to women in public toilets. And she went, well, yeah. I said, so I'm a threat to people in public toilets. She went, well, no, not you. I said, well, you can't have it both ways. I'm sorry. Either all trans women are a threat in public toilets, which is ridiculous, or if I'm one of them. So you can't have it both ways. Say, well, some are and some aren't, because it just doesn't work like that. And that really upset me, actually, because I thought better of her for that. But you're quite right. Yes, people will stop going to the toilet now. Not everybody can get a disabled key. And the danger of being challenged, the humiliation of being challenged, as a lot of cisgendered women are finding out now, being challenged in public toilets, it's ridiculous. And we can't have vigilantism of people policing people going in and out of toilets. All anybody wants to do is to go in and go to the loo and then wash your hands and go out again.
Yeah, it's crazy how much has changed. Now, how alarming is it how quickly things have changed? And how are you feeling about the speed of change?
Well, I'm hoping that it's going to slow slightly now that the Good Law Project are on the case. And the fact that the government is realising that this law is completely unworkable. Women in sport, I think, is a different matter. But I think women in public, everybody seems to be going on about the public toilets. I think there are other things to discuss. The women in sport or in refuges, whatever. But, trans women get beaten up too. And that's a ridiculous thing, that trans women are more likely to be the victims of male violence than cisgendered women are. And but that is not considered. We are sort of being put into a category of they want to get away. Sometimes it seems that some of the politicians actually want to take away our human rights. And if the government ever moved to get us to leave the European Court of Human Rights, that would be the end of us.
And so you've got a group of people here. Hopefully we'll go out to the podcast for more people to listen to.
Yes.
What is your message to them?
Well, the message is never take anything for granted. I'm sorry to say that there are some people in the gay movement who feel, that we can be, as long as their rights are protected, they can cut off the trans. The trans can be let go, and because then nothing will happen to them. But if they come for us today, they'll come for you tomorrow. So you can never take any of your rights for granted. You have to constantly fight for them, and it's wearisome and it's fed up. And we have to be allies to each other as well. If you attack one of us, you attack all of us.
Adèle, I think that's an amazing message. Thank you so much for coming back onto the podcast. Really do appreciate it for sharing.
Thank you for listening to The View from Here. Of course, there's a lot of politics in any movement, but the political views you've heard across the series don't necessarily reflect the views of the podcast.
If you enjoyed this episode, please consider subscribing and leaving a review, as well as sharing the word on social media. Join us next time for more personal stories from the front lines of LGBTQ+ history.